Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Scott, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of the Eaglecrest Residents Association and to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish people and specifically our friends to the west, the Qualicum First Nation. A thank you is extended to our fellow resident associations, Chartwell, Qualicum Beach, and Qualicum Woods, for their assistance in promoting to their members participation in this all candidates meeting. And I would like to thank all of you for being here this evening, and especially to the candidates for taking time out of their very busy schedule to be with us tonight. The goal this evening is to assist you, the electors, and you, the candidates, to have a respectful and productive dialogue that will identify the important challenges facing our community, but more so, to seize the opportunity to work together to foster the best possible outcomes through positive and constructive collaboration. With this in mind, I would like now to introduce to you our moderator for this evening, Michael Garland. Michael is a resident of Parksville, is not affiliated with the Eaglecrest Residents Association, and brings to our meeting tonight his experience as a moderator and a facilitator in both public and private realms. And I'm going to thank you very much right now because it's going to be a very busy evening. I may not get the chance. Thank you very much, Michael, for doing this for us, and the evening now is in your hands.
Thank you very much, Bill. First off, big thing tonight, respect. We want to be respectful of the folks that are giving up their times to serve our community, and we want to make sure that everybody is giving a fair opportunity. So that's the most important part. So remember, this is a forum, not a debate. What is the difference? A forum, you ask questions of the panel. It's not a debate between them and everybody out here. You're going to be having the opportunity of listening to some of the questions that were given to us. And by the way, I want to thank the over 60 people that emailed us with questions. And I have to apologize, I just couldn't get them all in. I'm really hoping that we've caught the spirit of what you're trying to find. And hopefully I can ask the right questions to get the answers for you. So the way that the table was set up, it was by a draw. So as the candidates came in, the table was numbered, and they drew from a small container as to where they're going to be seated. So again, this is about as random as you're going to get. Yes, I didn't have to worry about alphabetical order. So a couple of things for housekeeping that we always want to remember is that the candidates will be given 60 seconds. They're going to introduce themselves in 60 seconds. They will have a minute to respond to a question, and they will all be given the opportunity. They may decline if they don't have the information with them, but they will all be given the opportunity. And I want to thank our timekeeper. So again, and the purpose of that again is to make sure that we respect your time as well. So we will make sure that everybody keeps within the realm of 60 seconds. And what we're going to do, just to have this so it's very visible, we put a cone on one end. That's where the first question will go. And then the cone will keep moving so that the second person, they will be the first lead off on the second question. So again, total random. You probably had a better luck picking this than the 649. The other thing, too, with those questions that did come in, I want to thank the PQB News reporter, Kevin Forsyth, because I asked him for some feedback as well. And so another little thing for housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please turn off all electronic devices except if they're hearing aids or heart monitors. I'd really recommend not doing anything like that. Also, you'll notice we have videographer at the back. And I think let's give a hand of applause to PQB Film. It is not going to be live streamed, but it will be on YouTube on or before the 29th. So again, thank you very much for you folks for coming in and setting it up. And one last little thing, something that's very important, dear to my heart as I get older, the washrooms. To your left, out the doors. In an emergency, I would like everyone to exit through the side. The muster point is just on the other side of the doors there. So we've got some of the housekeeping out of the way. So now, at this time, what I'd like to do is I'm going to get the candidates to start introducing themselves. Oh, we have a question from the timekeeper. I think I explained that pretty accurately to the board. Every once in a while it works right. So again, for those that didn't hear it, we have the 3 lights, and unlike stop signs, please obey them. Our first candidate will introduce themselves.
I'm Brian Weiss. Good evening all. Welcome to the All Candidates meeting. During the 2018 election, I ran on specific goals which you overwhelmingly endorsed. The East Village Dream. I promoted the renewal and led the negotiation with the owner of the one-time lumberyard known as the Old Gallery building. It's gone. I successfully brought partners to the table and led the building of the extremely successful Fern & Cedar Pub, Northern Distillery, and the butchery to open in the coming months. This effort resulted in the rezoning and approval of a badly needed rental housing in the East Village, 50 rental apartments, 22 condos, and commercial space. Pheasant Glen, first proposed in 2006, finally across the finish line. Affordable housing got a magnificent start in the Kiwanis Truly Affordable Housing Project, 56 units. By lobbying the province in conjunction with the Perfect Storm Group was undoubtedly the premise for nurse practitioners coming to fruition. I like to think I brought new energy and commitment to their promises, both old and new. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is John Phillips. I got involved mainly because I felt that the residents of Qualicum Beach. I got involved mainly because I felt the residents of Qualicum Beach weren't being heard, weren't being listened to, and weren't being represented appropriately in council. I think I can bring some fresh ideas and new energy to that direction, and I'm willing to put in the work to make sure that Qualicum stays and remains the lovely town that we all moved here for.
Testing. Good evening, I'm Peter Kent, running for Qualicum Beach Council. Hopefully you remember me from the by-election. I am here again because many people have approached me and asked me to run, and I feel that I can bring my experience, my innovation, and vision to our council. My wife's family, the Reeds, have been here for over 100 years. My mother lived here for 35, and we do live in a jewel, this community, but Qualicum Beach is facing many of the same pressures and growing pains that Squamish did during my council term there. Having had the experience of working on a council through those issues, I feel I can bring that knowledge to the table as well as my ability for collaborative teamwork. This is a civic responsibility. I want to listen to what you have to say and translate that to action together. I hope you vote for me on October 15th so we can move forward with vision as one. Please go to my Facebook page, Peter Kent for Qualicum Beach Council, or kent4qb.com. Thank you for coming out tonight, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tunis Westbrook. At the age of 19, I left Holland to come to Canada to assist my studies. I fell in love with Qualicum Beach at first sight, and that feeling never left. Protecting the very qualities that attracted all of us to Qualicum Beach in the first place has always been my goal as your mayor, and my commitment to you has not changed. I will stay the course to maintain financial stability, modest growth, transparent and inclusive decision-making, environmental protection, and above all, compassion for people. My vision has always been to put the needs of our residents first, as we enhance the small town atmosphere that makes this award-winning community with a wealth of cultural and recreation facilities, our paths and trails, our beaches, and a very welcoming village center, one of the best places to live for people of all ages. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You will hear many conversations and promises tonight, but a vote for me will bring your voice to council. I'm advocating for weekly coffee chats here at our Civic Center to hear your concerns, talk about mindful progress of our community, and what needs to be added to council agenda meetings. I am all about transparency and collaboration. For any council decision, I believe in hearing your concerns, doing the research, and voting on what was in the majority interest, as this is a democratic process. 4 years ago, all the candidates talked about the need for health care and available and affordable housing. And here we are today, still needing to address all that. In the last 8 years, as an empty nester, I had the time to serve as a board director with many of our community organizations. I'm experienced in regularly setting up agendas and completing those goals. Let's work together to sustain and achieve the values of this unique and exceptional community we call our home. And also, I have a little bio sheet, just pick it up on the side for more info and contact.
Yeah, very good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Filmer. I'm running again for re-election for councillor for the town of Qualicum Beach. In 2018, I was elected at the age of 20, becoming the youngest person in history to hold office in Qualicum Beach. It's something I'm very proud of, and I think it's something more or less above personal efforts, but something important for any community to have not only a young person, but somebody that rents. And being a young renter, to be able to sit at a table and help make decisions and bring that voice to the table. Housing, and especially renting and house buying, has been very different for 20 and 30-year-olds in today's world than it was 40 and 50 years ago. And I think it's very important to continue that work. I've been volunteering in the community for since I was 12 years old. I was in the Air Cadet program, volunteering as much time as I could through our Legion, and then also through the cadet program across the community. It's been an honor working for you for the last 4 years, and I look forward to continuing that work in the next 4 years. On October 15th, vote Robert Filmer.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks very much. I'm just happy that with the name Willie, I'm not last. So that worked out really, really well. Thank you. I've been a member of this community now for over 30 years, and I cherish this community. I've raised my 3 daughters here. I'm lucky to have had them left and now have come back to the island, which is something as parents we all wish they would do. I think we need to move forward in this community. And understand that with all the issues that are going out there, with the war in the Ukraine, climate change, hurricanes hitting Florida, all those things that are happening out there, we still live in the best little community on Vancouver Island. And I love it here. I want to stay here, and I want to contribute in ways that I think I can with the history, with the family connections, and with the depth that I have in what I've done over the last 20 years in business. I think I can add some value to the table and work with the other 4 that you put forward on council. So thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Doreen Mackay-Dunn. I'm running for council. Qualicum Beach has a unique village character. Don't allow development to destroy that. Our town is extremely special and different from what Parksville has become. We can maintain that. It is time for us to take control of development and tell them what they can do, not the other way around. Qualicum Beach is our town. We live here, and we want and deserve the best. The East Village approval was rushed and should have been deferred to the next council. On October 15th, select a team committed to protect the village character of Qualicum Beach. Please vote for me. I want to be on that team. I will preserve the village character of our town. My name is Doreen Mackay-Dunn. Thank you for your vote.
Good evening. Oh, good evening. And I just want to thank the residents associations and all the volunteers in the town for putting this event on. Last Thursday, I was donating blood in this very room, and I was talking to one of the volunteers there, and he told me that our region gives more blood than any other part of British Columbia. And I just think I want to highlight things like that, because when it comes down to it, for me, a community is far more about buildings. It's actually about people. It's about the people in this community and looking out for one another. And for me, that's at the heart of what it means to be in a small community. And we have made some progress on very big problems that are going to take a long time to really fix. It took us decades to get into these problems. It's going to take us a long time to get out of them, too. But we saw the first new affordable rental housing project built in Qualicum Beach. It should be approved very soon by BC Housing, and it's the first new one since 1978. We also, too, we're seeing the first investment in the 21st century that I'm aware of in primary care from the province with the Patient Care Network. Flowerstone's a nonprofit. There are only 3 examples of nonprofit nurse practitioner facilities in all of British Columbia. So we are seeing some things happen, but I will also acknowledge there's more work to be done. And so I think really in this election what it sort of comes down to, my apologies, is whether we prioritize the people in this town or we prioritize the buildings instead. Thank you so much.
I should have bought my hearing aids before I decided to do this little project. Good evening, neighbors. My name is Stan Beach. My wife and I moved to Qualicum in 2014. We married on our 5-acre ALR property on Garden Road in 2015. In 2016, we renovated a patio home for my mother-in-law to move from North Vancouver. In 2018, we dressed up another patio home in Parksville for my mother to move from Ladysmith. My wife likes breathing room. For the past 8 years, we have worked to bring our derelict property back to life. And then my wife in 2017 took courses and started her realtor business here in Qualicum, because working in Parksville, though larger, did not appeal to her. We both prefer to live and work in Qualicum because it feels like home.
Hello, my name is Petronella Vandervalk, and I have been a property owner in Qualicum Beach since 2007 and have lived here permanently since 2016. I have been very involved in the community, having served on the town's advisory planning commission, serving on the board of the Qualicum Beach Residents Association, and speaking at many council meetings. I love Qualicum Beach, and I feel I can contribute to building a strong and vibrant community while keeping our unique village character. I have the qualifications to do this job and to do it well. I have a degree in urban geography and sociology and a degree in architecture. I can and will work with others to achieve the best results in the interests of the town. I am recently retired and have the time, energy, and commitment to meet the challenges of a councillor for Qualicum Beach. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ann Skipsey, and I feel very fortunate to live in Qualicum Beach, as I'm sure many of you do as well. Much has been done well in the planning and development of our town. The very first official community plan was completed in the 1970s when my dad was mayor, and it laid out the vision for the type of community Qualicum Beach wanted to be. We are privileged to have the opportunity to continue to build on this solid foundation with its forward-thinking groundwork. My vision for Qualicum Beach is to preserve its unique character while moving forward, embracing change and innovation to address the opportunities and challenges of healthcare, housing diversity, aging infrastructure, and improving the local economy. Based on what I'm hearing on the doorstep, I believe these are the top-of-mind issues for many residents, and I look forward to exploring them further with you this evening. Thank you.
Well, now you've had a chance to hear them, and now let's get some of the questions going here. So, as I alluded to, there were just so many. So I'm going to start with an interesting one, and again, if we get this thing to continue working, one of the questions that came to us was, would you support using town funds to facilitate a small-scale medical clinic to attract doctors?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I would. Sort of these, unless you're eating these microphones, they don't work very well, so my apologies. Yes, in working with the province, former councillor, now MLA Walker in the back of the room, I can see him there. We're going to look at explore options at the old fire hall site. So whether that looks like a medical clinic on the bottom, maybe 2 floors of apartments for doctors that can actually come here and find a place to live. Just because you're a doctor does not mean you're wealthy, especially the young ones. They have student loans, et cetera. So we could encourage them to come here with free rent, possibly, for 2 floors, or maybe a floor, or maybe 2 above that. We could actually put income market rentals, which would help subsidize that. So between grants in the province, some help from the town itself, we can do a good job in recruiting doctors that may want to come here and work, live, and play in Qualicum Beach. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Yes, I would absolutely support the town using or getting involved in developing and working with bringing medical facilities here. Again, out on the doorstep and going door to door, it's one of the top items that people are interested in. I don't have the wealth of experience some people do in sitting at the council table, but I think there are ways that we can work with all levels of the provincial government and others to help facilitate bringing that to the town.
Thank you. Most absolutely. Not just funds, but lands, and working hand in hand with the province. It's a very pressing matter, especially in our community with our demographic over 65, and I'm right there with you. Thinking outside the box by working with nonprofit groups, donating this land, including grants from senior levels of government, also building housing or dormitories possibly above the clinic facility, where doctors could stay, at least be close in proximity to the work until they could find more permanent residence. We all need to think more creatively instead of relying on the province to take control. And these are things that we can do, measures we can take. Thank you.
Of all the issues that I hear talking and listening to people, it's healthcare by a long shot. And I know it's a provincial responsibility, but there is some things that the town can and should do. And last night there was a reception here, and I spoke with Minister Adrian Dix about the idea of having a community-owned primary healthcare center in Qualicum Beach. And yes, it would require some town resources, town land, and perhaps some resources as cash or provide other support. But I think we also will need some kind of I call it a full throttle recruitment initiative, because we're competing all over the province trying to get the same people, doctors, nurse practitioners, and so on. So I think if you take example from Creston, where they've hired a coordinator, they were successful. And as an incentive, and you heard it before, is to have some accommodation. I think we can be successful and attract doctors and nurse practitioners and other medical people that we need to take care of us. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. I would support town funding to help facilitate medical, medical services. And I'm not shy. I think possibly I'd like to ask new developments that have commercial on the ground floor and residential upstairs. Instead of the land lift, perhaps they could offer an office space in one of the commercial units. We can always ask. Back in the old days, I've heard from the door knocking that there are communities where they offered a house to the doctors. And that's something we could look at too. I also believe that we need to market Qualicum Beach as the quality of life that is fabulous for raising young families. I've raised my family here, and I think that to attract some of the doctors that have funding provincially to come to BC, we can say, choose Qualicum Beach. Don't go to Kelowna, because we're offering you a quality of life to raise a young family. Don't go to Vancouver, where in emergency wards you're going to make so much more money. Choose Qualicum Beach, because we have quality of life.
Yeah, you know, I think it's really important, you know, over the past 4 years of sitting at the council table, I've been very clear that I'm not in favor of downloading. And when I talk about downloading, it's requirements or the job of higher levels of government asking municipal governments and local governments to essentially do their work. However, as a municipal government or local government, it is our job to care for our people. So that is the only real part of me that does want to look at building some type of medical facility in town is because it's caring for our people. A lot would still have to go to the province, but when we look at town funded, you know, I have to ask the question of with what funds? I've been sitting at the council table for the last 4 years, and there's not a lot of reserve funds that we can use to go into other projects. However, with the development that council just approved, once that development is complete, there is just over $500,000 of CAC's community amenity contributions. That's actual money that council has fully allocated to build some type of facility or housing for a doctor. So this council's already put in funds to help that project move forward, and I look forward to continuing that work.
I think healthcare is the biggest question, and certainly one of the biggest conversations at any coffee table, anywhere you're at today, not only here, not only BC, but in all of Canada. And to give you a perspective of numbers, this province spends $25 billion a year on healthcare, $66 million a year, and the total budget of Qualicum Beach is $15 million. So we don't have a lot of room on our operating side to be operating facilities, but I think we can step ahead of everyone else and offer the unique community that we have, but also amenities that we could provide to maybe facilitate us being a little higher on the list than other communities. So yes, it's very badly needed. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is my top issue that's very important to me. My training as over 30 years as a registered nurse and psychiatric nurse, the concern for health care is so important. And I have a plan that we should put into action right away. I know, I believe the Life Labs, the old Life Labs office area might be still available. If not, maybe some other office building, like Jean suggested. And we just bring what they're doing on Cook Street in Vancouver. I believe 4 registered nurses have opened up a drop-in walk-in clinic. And then they have a doctor on call. And then they can refer to the hospital and send someone. But then they do the triage, and hopefully we could get a doctor to come here. I had an idea that with our town planning, we could encourage people to put carriage homes or rent places for doctors in our town. So that's my plan.
So during this term, I was the liaison for the Perfect Storm Group. I sat in the meetings with Marlis Diamond and all the volunteers with the Perfect Storm Group, James Dimmick and others. And this is a very, very complicated building to build. It's not easy. And one of the things I really want to highlight is that we have this overarching problem of attraction and retention of doctors. So yes, we can try to build a building, but we also have to make sure that doctors are going to come here to staff that building. Otherwise, we just have a building that we've spent over $10 million on, and it's not providing a service for citizens. So I think one of the key things we want to look at is working with the Division of Family Practice, who have staff who are responsible for attraction and retention, to make sure we're doing what we need to do as a community, not just with the facility itself, but also ensuring the quality of life of those doctors who are coming here. Well, how can we help make them put down roots in this community and raise their family here? How can we get those young medical graduates to choose Qualicum Beach over every other community in British Columbia? So I do support that initial initiative, but I think we have to look beyond just simply the building itself and assume that'll fix the problem, and look more broadly at how we can work with the division to attract medical practitioners. Thank you.
I find it bizarre. We cannot attract medical doctors to set up practice in beautiful Qualicum. Yet, we seem to have plenty of veterinarians. This problem is bigger than any solution Qualicum can support at this time.
Yes, I would definitely support that. And I think this might be one of the few reasons why we would want to go out of the existing OCP. It would have a clear and definite benefit to the community. But funding a clinic may not be sufficient to attract doctors, and we need to have discussions, as has been mentioned previously, with the healthcare community as to how we might determine other incentives. Thank you.
So my answer is yes, but up to a certain point. So, and I do feel that this would have been a good question to have on the ballot as a real test of the support from the community, because it's certainly something I'm hearing on the doorstep. What I think the town can offer is the land, and then work closely with our MLA and the Division of Family Practice, and work towards this type of model. It's a model that is proving successful in other places in British Columbia and in Canada. And so I think it's worthy of further consideration. And from what I'm hearing, this is a top priority for residents. So let's invest and make sure everyone gets connected with a doctor or nurse practitioner. Thank you.
And again, for the person who was good enough to send that question in, good feedback, and thank you so much for adding to it. Now, we're going to go to a next one, which again is very dear. So, what is your vision for youth activities and facilities in Qualicum Beach, such as a skateboard park? Because again, to attract people to the community and the service industry, we will have to have that type of support. So I think a lot of folks here would be very interested in what your vision is going forward.
I am a certified coaching instructor in 3 different sports. I've worked with both male and female youth in basketball, football, and other sports. So I have invested a great deal of my personal time with youth sports and youth activities. So I don't know if there is one single answer, if it's a skate park or a water park or something like that, but I think there's definitely a need to study and have a look at what facilities can be made available to youth and what the youth are really interested in. You know, no use having a bocce court or a lawn bowling if they want to go skateboarding or play basketball. So I think it's something that we definitely need to encourage, we need to investigate, and it's appropriate that the municipality support in that, but more importantly, it's important that parents and organizations are also online with supporting that as well, because without parent participation, it's kind of, that doesn't always work out, sorry.
Well, we have a myriad of different sports groups in town, so and they all seem to be doing a fabulous job. So I will touch briefly on the skateboard park, which is exactly what my twin sons asked me when I said I was running for council. Dad, can we do something about the skateboard park? We have many new families coming here with kids, and that skateboard park is a focal area for many of them. It was dedicated 26 years ago, and it is woefully inadequate by today's standards and what the kids are expecting. It's too small. There is no bowl existing. The lights that we do not control, those are run by the RDN. And it's poorly finished, so it needs to be expanded and redesigned. And I believe many of those points can come from within the community, from volunteers, as far as the design goes, and even some of the construction phase, which we did in Squamish with our own skate park. So maybe even as a school design project, having the kids come out and help to design what they'd like to see and researching some of that. We have one of the best skate companies in the world residing in this town now with Skull Skate. And as a father of teenagers, I understand the importance of giving kids something to do. And perhaps even some bleachers out there so we can all sit and watch the kids and have events there would be great. Thank you.
I agree with Peter. There are lots of things that we can do for our youth, but it seems the skateboard park is a bit of a highlight. Full disclosure, I was helping build that 26 years ago, and I guess I didn't get it quite right because there seemed to be some flaws with that. But you know, I'm willing to say that we could do better, and I think we need to give our youth that chance to build a better skateboard park because they will skate almost anywhere, but they're not welcome everywhere. And so I think we need to do this properly and more like a park setting. And the fences that are there, I think we could do better than that. I think there could be some picnic tables and benches for those of us who don't want to do this because it's very challenging. They might want to just sit there and watch. I would never do. I just came from there, had a look, and these like 4-year-olds crying that they have to go home. They want to do more jumps, and they're on their little bikes and scooters. So this is not just for skateboards. This is for bicycles, for people that are very talented, doing flips in the air with these things. I'm amazed, and I'm willing to put my shoulder to the wheel again to build a more improved and additional features of our skateboard park. Thank you.
Definitely, I believe that all recreational facilities should always be maintained and upgraded if necessary. And that includes expanding the pool. We don't need to wait for Parksville to build theirs. Let's just deal with our own facilities. Upgrade the BMX track as well, because for Family Day, we couldn't have a demonstration there because the soil was too wet, and so the grounds need to be worked on. In the skateboard park, my middle son just loved it, and that's about 10 years ago, and I don't think it's ever been maintained or upgraded. And I remember a couple years ago when there was less young families here and we had the school closure, that skateboard park became a little derelict with extra graffiti, and I'm sorry to say, but even some drug exchange. So I'm glad that there's young families in town. That definitely needs to be upgraded so that it can be enjoyed by all the kids that are going out there right now. And also our local school ground at the Commons there, that also should be maintained as a nice play area.
Yeah, I think when we start looking at parks and recreation, especially in town, we also need to look at family and youth retention. During my last 4 years on council, we have seen the biggest increase in youth and families in the town than we have in past years. And that's a huge accomplishment for Qualicum Beach, but it also looks at the success that we've had and the success that we've been building. Again, with the development that we recently approved, we allocated over $500,000 into parks and recreation to be able to improve our parks and recreation for our youth. You know, I've got an 8-year-old niece that's being raised right in town, and I took her to Crystalton Park in Qualicum Woods just before it was upgraded, and she was, "Uncle Bob, this park is old." And I go, "Yes, it is." And sure enough, council with an initiative have just successfully upgraded the entire park, and it's probably the nicest place in town for our youth, especially in a local neighborhood. So when we start looking at projects like that, we need to expand on that. The skateboard park, I sat in 2018, I was put onto the Parks and Rec committee by that council at the time as the youth rep, and I now chair that committee. And we've brought groups for the skate park in multiple times, and it's something that we have been working on, but it's a very expensive project. And unfortunately, we did miss it in our strategic planning this term. It will certainly be added in the next strategic plan to make sure that we can improve parks such as that. Thank you.
You know, I think it's really important that we've invested over the last 30 years in this building here. A number of years ago, like you say, with the pool, with the park, with the skateboard park, and all those things should be in an asset-based analysis and looking at how long they've got left to live and how much we need to set aside to make sure we take care of some of these assets that we have and the skate park is way overdue. But there's also a couple of other things that's probably on people's lists here, and perhaps that's something we should be looking at in the next OCP, is what are the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that people would like to see? Because I know when my grandkids are here, I always end up in Parksville at that park, because that is a great kids park. And we've got St. Andrews down there now. I can see that and visualize that as having one of the great spots for our grandchildren. So I think there's a number of things that are on that hit list for this community that people would like to talk about, and we should be. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I do agree with Dave Willey that we should have an asset management analysis of our facilities. There's a wonderful skate park going up in the city of North Vancouver. It's just amazing. Maybe we could follow that model, and I'm sure the kids would just love it. We also, when I talked to more young people that I notice at the doors, they were saying they need more playgrounds because they always have to go to Foster Park or the community park at Parksville. So more playgrounds would be excellent. And we need our track and fields maintained, and we could probably use more. And I also was hoping for young people and seniors to get a pickleball court. And I was thinking near the dog park area, there's some town land, but I'd have to work on that with my colleagues. But it's so important to support our youth and have activities for our seniors too. Thank you.
Yeah, so for me, I think the next 4 years, one of the biggest things is just focus on amenities, amenities, amenities. If you drive to other communities in the Mid-Island area, the recreational amenities in most other communities exceed ours. With all the cumulative wealth we have in our communities, our facilities are actually below par, not even at par. The track at Bolinas is from 1977. It's older than I am. Our skate park is 26 years old. My aunt was living here at the time. She remembered for her teenage sons how hard it was to get that built back in the day. It was predominantly done by volunteers. So we do need to invest in our recreational infrastructure because it loops back to this fundamental problem of how do we attract the young families we need to serve the population as a whole. And that's where I think recreational infrastructure, you go to the 2018 RDN study for the Oceanside Recreation Master Plan. They spent 2 years consulting on that. Add additional projects as well, but don't try to reinvent the wheel with more studies. Let's actually do what we said we were going to do first, and then look at the additional things as well. We don't have to start a whole new planning process, then lose 4 years and end up paying more because costs have increased.
I attended the skateboard park promotion. It is in rough shape. I like art and culture. As a community, we need to provide facilities as we can afford them.
I'm sure we all agree that the youth are a very important part of our community. And I think that we should look at the amenities and facilities that would best serve our youth, be that a skateboard park or adding on to the pool. But I think we also need to prioritize which ones can we achieve within our budget.
Well, having grown up in this community, I recognize the importance of community amenities like the swimming pool, which we didn't have. I learned how to swim in the ocean, like a skateboard park, a cinema, a running track. And this may not come as a surprise to you, but I don't skateboard and know nothing about what makes a good skate park. So I did watch some skateboarding during the Olympics, and it looks amazing. And you have to be very brave, I think, to try it. But I think we need others in the town to step up and champion these things, like is being done currently with the multi-use cinema. The council that is elected will be discussing these matters during strategic planning, and I would be supportive of looking at ways to make these things happen. Thank you.
Thank you. I've made this more than clear since I started when I went to the skateboard park event a couple of weeks ago. It was an event where I talked to families and I talked to children, and the excitement in the room was at the park was unbelievable. There's a bunch of the counselors here that were there as well. It was an amazing, amazing evening. So much so that the next meeting, which happened last Wednesday, I brought it to council to put the skateboard park on the strategic plan. There's other things we need to do, lots more things. We need to move that park out of the trees. It's right in the trees, like right next to a dense forest, which is shaded all the time. Our playground at the park is in the trees, highly outdated. It definitely needs to be done. I think Councillor Filmer and a few other councils have brought that up. Our parks are like way beyond where they should be. We need to get to work on them. I'd like to elaborate on the pool a little bit. The pool was scheduled for a retrofit. The inside for a big change, and there was scheduled also for 4 more lanes on the outside. And my time is up. I'll elaborate on that later. Thank you.
Never thought I was that imposing, but apparently walk softly. Thank you so much. That was some pretty good insight, and I do appreciate that because some different ideas came out, and I think this is exactly what this forum kind of brings when you get folks that ask the right questions. So, changing it a wee bit, we're going to talk about the environment a wee bit. And so here's a challenge. So I'd like to challenge the candidates, as was presented to us. What ideas can you bring to address the infrastructure recycling shortfall? You can tell those were not my words. For such items as glass and yard waste, because right now, unfortunately, the system we have, it doesn't account for that. We can take the trip up to Courtenay or Nanaimo to dispose of them. So this is going to take some innovative thinking. So to the members that are looking at council, what are your ideas? What do you think we can do to help facilitate the recovery of recyclable materials?
Thank you. And you said it right there, it's going to take some innovative thinking. First off, I think the novel idea of actually having both of these facilities open would be helpful. I went by there yesterday and both of them were closed. We need to involve and work more closely with the RDN, I think is the key piece here in getting our recycling taken care of. I'm not going to touch on it too much because I'm not an expert in the field, but I will be interested in hearing what some of my candidate friends here have to say. But I do also want to touch on the yard waste issue. Perhaps maybe something that we could work on would be a community compost. I know that would have to be somewhere out of the way where the smell would not affect the rest of the community. We did it in Squamish, it worked very well, and people were able to come in and make use of that later on to bring it back and put it into their own garden. So there's a thought. Thank you.
In Nanaimo, they have the green bin, but they're allowed to put yard waste in. And it makes so much more sense if we have small gardens and you can't really get rid of your yard waste unless you drive it to the facility at Church Road, is to have it picked up. They do it in Nanaimo. It's very convenient. It doesn't make sense for us to drive our vehicles back and forth because that's the whole idea is about the environment. And so if you're driving, everybody drives a car to the drop-off spot at Church Road, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it can be done. And actually composting, what we do with yard waste, actually makes very good product. As far as the glass and other stuff, my wife, she is a fiend on trying to bring stuff that she doesn't think we should go in the garbage to Nanaimo. She saves it up till we have a full carload and then takes the plastics and glass over there. But I think if we had those pop-up services that we have had from time to time actually it was at the St. Columba Church, that was very convenient. And I think we need to work with the province because it's a provincial thing. They think it's okay for us to drive that material to Nanaimo or Courtenay, and I think that's not really right. So we need to do either a pop-up service so people can take their material there or talk with the province and say, we need a facility right here in our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tunis, and the guys before me here. You guys got great ideas. Peter Kent, too. Definitely, let's do what Squamish's been successful at doing or Nanaimo's been successful at doing. When I was door knocking, I did hear people complain about the glass and the plastic and what to do about it. And driving it to Comox or Nanaimo, there's our carbon footprint. So yes, it certainly needs to be addressed. And certainly if we brainstorm together, we can probably figure out something and certainly look at other communities to see how they're dealing with this.
Over the past 4 years of sitting on council, gotten lots of phone calls, and the only time I get really angry phone calls is when a service that we should be providing to our residents does not happen. When we have developments that don't go the way a resident doesn't want it, we'll get a phone call or I'll get a phone call, but it's more of a discussion. When your road isn't plowed when it snows or your garbage isn't picked up, I get yelled at. And rightfully so, because it's a service that we provide to you. One of my biggest frustrations over the past 4 years is services that we provide as a municipality are controlled by the Regional District of Nanaimo. When you look at how the board is comprised at the Regional District of Nanaimo, you essentially have the City of Nanaimo who holds many seats on that board controlling things that happen within your community. So when we look at services that are provided or should be provided by your locally elected council, those services need to be controlled by that locally elected council. I've been harping on that for the past 4 years. The City of Nanaimo, the City of Nanaimo can put certain things in their garbage and green bins that we can't. So we need to look at those types of things and see how we can actually provide the services that we need to be providing to our residents. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Landscaping debris is a big issue. I know that a number of the communities are making changes. Nanaimo's had it for a while. I know they're suffering some volume issues with it, but I know Courtney Comox is now putting forward that it is mixed in with the green bins. It means the green bins have to become larger bins for obvious reasons. And it also means it has to have some sort of maximum on it. Otherwise, the trucks won't make through the routes, I guess, is what I'm understanding. So it needs to be done. As a matter of fact, I'm probably the lone truck in about my 10 neighbors around me, except for maybe one. And I pick up everybody's debris on my way to the dump. And Dave's going, and they throw the bags in. So I would agree. I think it needs to be done. Thank you.
I'd like to see, working with my colleagues, to work with the RDN to set up a collection day, either that they come into the town of Qualicum Beach, or we get actual bins that we can roll out ourselves, like the other bins. I think that would be the best solution, because we've got a lot of seniors, and otherwise the glass is just being dumped in the garbage. Now, I did some research that clean glass can survive endless crush cycles, and it can be used to aggregate to replace asphalt for roads and highways. And I think they're doing that now. They are doing it in the States, and I think they do it now to repair the highways. So, but they have to make sure that the glass is really washed out and cleaned, so we do need separate containers. And this is a huge problem, and we need to get on with this. Thank you.
Thanks. This is a good question, because it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're trying to reduce your ecological footprint to have to drive 45 minutes in each direction in order to do so and spew out a whole bunch of carbon dioxide in the process. So when it comes to the yard waste, that was an RDN decision. Essentially, for our Oceanside region, the rural areas said, we don't need it, we'll just throw it into our backyards, into the trees. So why would we have yard waste pickup? And that overruled the two municipalities, unfortunately, and we're not able to get a separate contract. Ideally, we can go back to the RDN and say, the two municipalities really want this, just like Nanaimo, please offer us the same service, we're all in the same regional district. For the glass and other recycling like styrofoam, Recycle BC is essentially responsible for that. It's a nonprofit funded by private sector, but there are clear gaps. And I think one of the things too, when we're talking about those facilities not being open, we should also ask why. Why are they not open? And the logical answer for me is that they don't have staff. They can't staff the building that day. You look at a lot of our small businesses, why are they not open? They don't have staff. So I think it's a very difficult business, and a great conversation with our MLA, who happens to be standing at the back right now, is talking about how can we make sure those businesses, we're offering them a fair amount of money for their service, so they can actually ensure they're paying their staff enough money to actually work here, can stay open, and they can actually get the job done. Because if it's not economically viable, it won't happen.
It seems everything comes with a cost. I would pay to dispose of glass if I had a local place to drop it.
I agree the current process is unacceptable and think that council should have a full review of the options, which might include renegotiation with the RDN, or as we currently handle cardboard, we could have a suitable in-town drop-off be set up. I think for me, I'm a gardener, and it is very frustrating for me to have to take my yard waste to the transfer station. They make it into compost, and then I have to buy compost. So I'm wondering if perhaps we could have an agreement with the transfer station where we periodically can go and take our yard waste or have it picked up, and then we can get some free compost. I know that the City of Vancouver, I believe in the month of May, have a situation like that. Thank you.
Well, this is a concern for me, as I am an avid recycler and a wannabe gardener. And I am aware of the issues that are created when people aren't able to get their yard waste to a recycling center. And just last week, Council approved some no dumping signs, as it has been an ongoing issue in various locations throughout the town. And I am concerned that these piles can become a fire hazard. As mentioned, we need to advocate for yard waste pickup at the RDN at that table, and if the solution with the RDN isn't feasible, in the short term the town could or should consider our own drop-off facility. Again, the short term, the pop-up depots were very popular, and I continue to bug our MLA on this issue on a regular basis and would suggest you do too.
That was a great finish, Ann. Thanks for that. As director on the RDN, I've been after this for a few years. I still don't understand why the RDN has a green bin program that accepts food waste, but no yard waste like Nanaimo does. We have a blue bin recycle that accepts plastic and cardboard, but not glass. Last year, the ability to recycle glass was lost in Parksville. Most of us are driving to Nanaimo to get rid of our glass now. Absolutely ridiculous. I've had numerous calls with Recycle BC with no positive move forward at this point other than the odd pop-up depot that they've done on Church Road. Is the RDN policy working with the province that needs to change? As a director, I've taken these concerns to the RDN on numerous occasions. They're seeing the issue in Oceanside, and I truly believe we'll see some headway in 2023. Thank you.
I think this is the one question where I didn't want to be at the end. Basically what they said. Sorry. I think you've heard a lot of options. You've heard a lot of good ideas. And I think we're all on agreement in that something needs to be done. It needs to be done in a cost-effective manner for both those people that are handling the recycling and for those that are providing the materials for recycling, whether it's getting free recycling or free compost back or any of those things. So I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. It's being done elsewhere, so those kind of things should be a natural part of our community.
I want to thank you all because, again, it's amazing. When people get together, we get lots of different ideas, that's for sure. Okay then, the next one deals again with the environment and basically planning within the town. So this question was sent to us, and actually I think I had 5 or 6 different versions of the same. So to those that are on the panel here, basically, what is your vision of the Eaglecrest Golf Club property with the downsizing of the golf course that is already zoned recreational green space? Now there's a loaded question. So again, depending upon how much background you have, but we have areas within the town that are designated as a green area, and I guess now we have to figure out how do we go forward if it's not economical to run a business on all of that property. So,
what happened with Eaglecrest a couple of years ago was unfortunate. It was mishandled. I signed a deal on behalf of the town about 12, 14 years ago when the Kim family owned it, and they had a company called Samayamu. And we had a 20-year deal to lease the 17th fairway, which the town owns, and a piece of the 18. There was still at least 12 years of that lease left. And the increase was based on inflation. By the time they got the answer to the question which was first raised, and I got all the emails from people who are members and were very upset the way the town handled that situation. So I got all the emails. And it said that in May 6th, they're trying to get a hold of us to discuss the 17th fairway. Finally, on December 23rd, they got the answer. 156% increase. A company cannot operate like that. I mean, they're trying to plan for the following year, and they get the answer in December. So they said, okay, we'll just don't use the 17th fairway, and we'll make it the 9th hole golf course. And it came that close to the whole thing being shut down. And the owner actually told me if I hadn't intervened, it would have happened. It would have been wasteland the way we handled it. Now that's the way it is. It's a nice 9-hole course. Gordy Hebert is here. He's happy to sign you up as a member and become part of the club. But the rest cannot be developed as far as residential development. It's green space. Thank you.
It is unfortunate that the Eaglecrest Golf Course downsized. When that happened, I did get an interpreter, and I went to speak to the owners and say, please, this is a town golf course that everybody has taken pride in and enjoyed, and it's a shame that it's downsized. And she said it was during COVID as well, and it was due to just not being financially affordable. So I said, how can we work? How can we help to make it a success for her? If she needed like fundraising or whatever. I did try her a couple of times, and she was pretty much steadfast in doing what they were doing. And then I know that Mr. Westbrook here did follow up with them, and it is what it is right now, and we're saving the green space, so thank goodness for that.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that it needs to stay green space, but it also depends, when we look at golf courses, in this community, that's probably the biggest recreation activity we have in the town for all ages is golfing. I mean, I know when I was still in high school, Qualicum Secondary built up a golf club of high school kids. So and that was through Pheasant Glen as well. But when we look at the golf course, we also need to understand that a couple of years ago during this council's term, when Eaglecrest started to take a turn, there was a member of council that put their hands into business that was not their business. And when things like that start to happen, it creates issues that council can no longer fix. So it's important to understand that when you do look at issues such as that, a lot of fingers were pointed directly at the Eaglecrest owners and the golf club, and I don't think that's fair. However, the question of does it stay green space or not stay green space, absolutely it stays green space. Ideally, an 18-hole golf course, as that is a very popular activity in our town. However, it's also up to a business to manage their business themselves and for council to assist where they can, but not to put their hands in business that is not theirs. Thank you.
Yeah, I would totally agree, and I think one of the problems I have is that there were certain amendments made and given to Kim when they were threatening to make it into 9 holes, and the agreement included taking the driving range out and allowing him to develop property in there, in housing, and that is, I think, has led to the problem now, where if they start to threaten us with doing something with the green space, then perhaps we'll make another arrangement in order to save them. And I just don't think it's a good idea to start that. That's why we're here where we are today. That should be green space, or it should be a golf course exactly as the way it is today. Thank you.
Thank you. A golf course should be protected as a park would be. It should be dedicated. And a review of the zoning would be the first step. Thank you.
Thanks. So this is an awkward question because I'm the Eaglecrest liaison for council. So if people in Eaglecrest have an issue, I'm likely to hear about that. And I've heard stories about, under the current ownership, trees falling into people's yards over their fence, and then the neighbors have to clean it up because the golf course doesn't respond. Shrubs that are growing into other people's properties and the golf course doesn't respond. And when we were talking about, one of my colleagues was talking about how the size of the lease went up 150%, it was $180 a month. And if your 18-hole golf course is insolvent because of a $180 a month lease, I think the bigger problem is in your operations, not so much in the lease. Forgive me. So I viewed that, and I hate to say this so candidly, I viewed that as an argument in bad faith. Fundamentally, it was a bad faith argument. By all means, if you want to make a change, that's your right as a business owner, although I have grave concerns. But in my view, it was an 18-hole golf course. It should be an 18-hole golf course. We can either work with them, or we can talk about whether or not we're actually going to renew the lease on the 17th hole and part of the 18th, because the way they're treating their neighbors is unacceptable.
Eaglecrest is its own unique community, and I am not informed on current options. Thank you.
His answers are always so short, and I think that it's important. The question was, what is your vision? And I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not my decision or my vision, but the vision of the community that should be put forward. And I think that we have to, in the upcoming official community plan review, I think we need to look at this question and discuss it with the residents of not only Eaglecrest, but of the entire community. Thank you.
Well, I would like to see it remain as an 18-hole golf course, either the same or with a possibly an update. I was on council when the new owners took over, and we immediately informed them that council had no interest in entertaining development proposals for this land. And so I am currently opposed to other uses for this land, and it would be contrary to our official community plan. So, as Petronella just mentioned, however, though, if the community feels differently, then during the next OCP review would be the time to have those important conversations with our residents. Thank you.
What I want, 18 holes as promised by then Mayor Westbrook, is where I want to go as well. Allowing the cottages to be built, I understand there's a section 19 covenant to ensure the golf course remained an 18-hole track. Where is that? I want to see where that is. People who bought on that property want to know, as do I. What happened with that? Rent increase was remarkably low. I think Councillor Harrison just said $180 a month. I know it was something ridiculously low. I believe the move to 9 has absolutely nothing to do with the rent increase, but everything to do with them wanting to develop those back 6 holes. Thank you.
I was recently door knocking in Eaglecrest, and certainly having the golf course back to 18 holes was a very popular topic with people. I'm certainly all in favor of people getting out there and getting activity and so forth. But we need to make sure that whether by infrastructure or zoning, we get appropriate returns for our community as a whole. Sorry. But whatever happens, we have to ensure it also boosts our town core and our restaurants and hotel industry. So whether we just want to make sure there's not development that turns the golf course into another housing settlement. Thank you.
Well, as Mr. Phillips said on the last question, being at the end of the line here doesn't leave a whole lot to bring up because all my esteemed colleagues have pretty much said it all, but I will state that I believe we should try and work with the existing owner and see if we can get it back to 18 holes. But as Mayor we said, there may be a latent desire in there to turn those last holes into some kind of a development, which I would not want to see. There is also possibly looking at a way of purchasing those lands somehow, possibly through community amenity contributions and reserving them for the town itself. That's something that could be investigated, but I think during the OCP review, which should come, that this is something that should be brought forth to the community. Thank you.
So there's no doubt that'll definitely be a topic at the council table in October, for sure. Okay, same vein, a little bit different direction, but this was kind of an interesting question that came up, and again from a number of people as well. And this is, again, I'm hoping that the folks here all have had an opportunity of getting some background information, and nothing is more truer in politics than acronyms, so the AFT plan, thank you, or as they would say, would you support the age-friendly transportation plan, which was started in 2013 and last revisited in 2019, being revitalized with priorities and funded through the town annual budget. So age-friendly means basically, I think some of the initiatives you've seen, the advent of e-bikes and e-scooters, and just getting around, making sure the way of making it through the town is safe for all pedestrians and those that have other modes of transportation other than car. So that was a long-winded explanation. Thank you. That's how I kind of looked at it first. But again, so repeating it, would you support the age-friendly transportation plan being revitalized with priorities and funded through the town annual budget? Take it away.
Yes, definitely, because we need to be age-friendly. We have per capita the most seniors, and when they lose their driver's license, we need to be able to still have them be able to get around. And I remember one time there was even a conversation about the golf carts running around downtown, so maybe that would be revisited as well. Anyways, but certainly, let's get working on some new ideas for the age-friendly transportation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, transportation is my field where I work. I work in transportation, although aviation, it falls into transportation. And you look at how people need to get around from point A to point B. When I transport passengers across the country, they always ask, how do I get here from here? And there's usually not an easy answer to get people from point A to point B, especially within communities. At our last council meeting, Mayor Weiss presented a motion for us to present an application to the province to look at an electric scooter program to allow those seniors that have lost their license or want an easier way of getting around or a more environmentally friendly way of getting around to come into town. At UBCM, I was speaking with a councillor from a community in the interior, and they're looking at actually funding a community bus where they own their own driver, and it's an electric bus, and it just stays within the town borders to move people around within town. We have the RDN that supplies transit, although it could be better. But what do we do to get our residents in town from point A to point B? And that's something that the town can really look into and fund. And there's projects out there that would make it happen. So absolutely, our age-friendly transportation plan needs to move forward. It's just a matter of how and when. Thank you.
Thank you. I would totally agree. It's time to relook at it, and probably out of self-interest, I'm fortunate enough to have my parents in their 90s living in an addition I put on my home a couple of years ago. And we all know at some point Dad might have to give up his license, and I don't want to be the one to tell him. I'll find somebody here to do that for me. But they need some form of transportation, something that they have singularly can control and not looking for rides from family, etc. It's part of what we need to be doing, and so I think we should redo the plan, and also consider putting some more pressure on the RDN and on the province to expand the bus service. It's a long process for those that have been involved. It's a 3 to 5 year process of BC Transit to expand bus lines and routes. And I think it's something we need to push more forward, to have more local bus service in the community here to get people where they need to go. Thank you.
Yes, I support the age-friendly transportation as being a priority. There are glaring examples when I was working with the committee on public safety and accessibility and emergency preparedness. A lot of issues came up about needing better street signage, which is getting a little bit better. Speed reduction, there's been some important changes, but we still need to do more. There's still an ongoing issue of light pollution that needs to be worked on, and I'm going to keep pushing that issue, that's for sure. And also, we need to talk about parking in the town. We should make more wheelchair spaces, force people not to bring their cars into town, fix the sidewalks, fix the moving ability to move people around the town, and the seniors should have priority. Thank you.
So just for folks who haven't read the document, the Age-Friendly Transportation Master Plan is basically the document our town has, which lists all the different intersections in our community and all the different bike lanes that might be built in the future. And what we tried to do in this term as a council, and I think a lot of the credit here goes to staff, is we tried to look at alternate modes of transportation more, instead of just cars and intersections. And I think there's a broader shift we want to do as a community as we move forward through the next few decades, is to move away from being entirely car-centric. Try to look at how can we have a more efficient public transportation? How can we use other modes of transport to actually get people from point A to point B? Because one of the big things too is it helps you stay connected, particularly as folks get older. And you're also going to want to make sure that people are actually staying active to be more healthy at the end of the day. So looking at this document is a great way to actually indirectly promote better health for citizens, while at the same time prioritizing what we're doing in terms of our infrastructure. The other thing I'd point out too is that we do need to make sure, like, it's not a question of whether or not you support it, because this is just, roads are what we do as a municipality, so you're going to be supporting it no matter what. The question is just, what do we prioritize within that?
I have not researched this specific topic, though we are driving Miss Daisy for our mums, my wife's mom and my mom. But a nice lady, and I was going to say elderly, but that's relative, believes we need good public transportation option to commute to Victoria for personal and medical reasons. Funding is always the issue.
I think it is important to review the AFT plan and its suggested projects, but I think we need to prioritize those projects and see which ones can be achieved relatively easily within the town's budget. And then for larger projects that will require long-term planning and specific alternatives. So we need to look at what can we do now within the budget and what can we do later and prepare for that. For example, one of the ones that would need more preparation might be the roundabout at Village Way and 19A. I think it might also be a possibility to look at, do we really have enough ridership on the bus routes right now? Perhaps we could customize the bus routes a bit more, so people could say, almost like a handy dart idea, could say, please come pick me up, and it would be a little more locally intended.
So yes, I think the age-friendly transportation plan is a good starting place, but honestly, it hasn't been dusted off enough to give us a true picture of where we are at. And I think making decisions based on something that was decided 10 years ago without first bringing it back to council and in many cases to the community, and letting council and the community decide, is this still in the best interest for our town, as there have been many changes in the world over the last 10 years. And I understand our new CAO has some good ideas about how we link our priorities in the strategic plan and the funding that would be required. Thank you.
I have to admit, I'm just a little bit confused. The money to revitalize the plan. The work hasn't stopped. We haven't stopped working on this. The traffic circle on the Old Island Highway, the traffic calming that comes associated with that, illuminated crosswalks all over town. I think there's 9 or 12, I can't remember the number, but we have like 9, 10, or 11 of them for sure. The Dollymont Trail, the pathway on Hemsworth, and the flashing light that crosses Village Way. The East-West Connector Route, the Memorial Dual-Purpose Pathway, the waterfront, countdown timers on crosswalks, the realignment of the intersection of Village Way and Memorial. The list continues. We've done an immense amount of work on that plan, and we're not going to stop anytime soon. To be clearer, though, that the pilot project I asked to partake in was the kick scooter program. So that's the two-wheel one, which has been extremely successful in all other communities. So thank you.
Well, at the risk of stealing Stan's thunder, yes, I support this. I also, having lived in Victoria for a number of years, I've seen what the detrimental damage can be by spending too much money on a small group versus considering all voices that are brought to the table. So I think, much like many of the other colleagues here have stated, it needs to be looked at, and it needs to be done so that it's financially and economically sound. So, I mean, and a perfect example, I was explaining to somebody the other day that when I was in Victoria, I used to refill my Petro Points card 3 to 4 times a year, you know, for bonus points and stuff, based on your gas consumption. Since I've moved here, I've done it once. And it's because we walk more, we, you know, use we don't drive our car everywhere that we used to drive. So there are certainly a much more drivable community, a much more walkable community, and having greater support for all of that is something that we should investigate for sure.
In my previous iteration in council, I was on the Public Transportation Committee, where I did find dealing with BC Transit to be somewhat protracted, I'll put it that way. So we ended up funding shuttles ourselves for some of our elderly citizens so they could get about town, and had a DART system set up on the back so they could get wheelchairs out of it, etc. I do believe that we need to take the plan out off the shelf and review it again through public consultation. That's listened to and applied. This is an umbrella sort of overarching concept, the age-friendly transportation plan. And I think I agree with Scott, we need to be less car-centric. This plan covers our sidewalks, our safety, our cycling paths, our public transit, but I think that we really need to put it out to the public again and find out where we are, as Ann said, and see what we need to do and what's pertinent to the community at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually agree with Brian. We've been working on this plan for more than a decade. And you saw the improvements we made on Memorial Avenue with Village Way, which was always kind of a nightmare for people, and crossing at East and West Crescent. So we've been working on that steadily with crosswalks and so on. And also the school path from the Airview School, basically all the way to Laburnum. So people can take their bicycle, their scooter, to safe places to go and not have to worry about fighting traffic. I got an electric bike now, and I golf at Eaglecrest. And by the way, I think we should acquire Eaglecrest, just like we did Memorial Golf Course. But I drive there on my electric bike. I have my bag parked in the locker. And you know what? I used to fill up my car every week. Now it's once a month. So as a low carbon transportation, like public transit, electric vehicles, electric cars, there are better ways. And I think eventually we're going to all have to ante up and try and save this carbon footprint to be diminished, if not for ourselves, for our youth. Thank you.
Well, that was actually very enlightening because, again, it's when the questions come in. I'm not an expert, as you can tell. I'm fairly legible sometimes, my writing. So it was great that we got some of these things clarified a wee bit. And again, obviously, it's something that's going to be ongoing. The next one I have is kind of all-encompassing. So it's something that perhaps council can't physically do and control parts of it, but there is another part. So this is going to be a two-part question here. And basically it comes down to the question that was sent to us is, what would you propose to tackle the issue of affordable housing as defined by BC Housing? So that definition that BC Housing uses is 33% of your disposable income for accommodation. So that was a general question, which again, it's very difficult for council to do, but there is a second part to the question that perhaps they can do. And the question that was sent to us was, would you support financial incentives to encourage homeowners to convert garages and outbuildings to affordable dwellings? Two-part question. Take it away, Robert.
Thank you. Yeah, this council, during my 4 years on council recently, we've worked really hard to try to get an affordable housing project and attainable housing projects in town, and we've succeeded. We brought railway in. Big thanks to Councillor Harrison for really spearheading that. But we worked hard to get that project in. Unfortunately, in the middle of our term, we hit a 2-year global health pandemic, and it put a lot of strain on everything, especially construction costs. And that has been a huge hurdle for all governments, especially local governments and developers to face. With BC Housing, they're a difficult beast to work with when you look at the partners that they work with. It's not an easy, we can say, I'm going to build affordable housing. Okay, tell me how. Because there hasn't been a single municipality in the province that has mastered it. They've been close, but nobody has mastered the issue. But everyone's coming up with their own ideas and their own paths to do it. In the last council meeting, I really spoke about stock. At UBCM, when we sat in and through the housing forum, we talked about underbuilt density. And when you have a parcel in town that calls for, let's say, 6 dwellings, and council says, let's put 2 there, that's underbuilt density. That's doing our citizens a disservice. Our official community plan will call for certain amounts of densities, and we change that because we want less. So when we build stock and there's competition amongst landlords, especially when it comes to rent, when it creates competition, that brings price down. As a young person, I know this firsthand. When you go through months of many rentals being on the market, they're cheap. As soon as market goes down, the prices go up. So if we can create competition and build a bigger stock amongst marketplace rentals and affordable rentals, we'll eventually bring the price down. And working with BC Housing on certain municipally funded projects, again, can bring us to that BC Housing target, which is 33%, used to be 30. So it's slowly going up. Thank you.
Thanks. I think there's obviously the big things I discovered a couple of years ago in building an addition on my house with a separate entry, et cetera, from my parents, was that it's as much experience as you might have, you still are not sure the pathways to go through, and it's not cheap. But at the same time, I think we could facilitate in a way with a group perhaps that we could put out there for individuals to step forward and say, I'm thinking of actually doing this at my house. What are my options? What would it look like? What are the costs? And there'd be a volunteer group that have done it or gone through it and be able to approach what I think would be a terrific answer in this community. Our infrastructure is in the ground. Our water is there. Our sewer is there. The road is there. It's an easy way of us adding additional housing in this community, and one that we could all support easily. When it comes to additional housing also, I think one of the keys is we do official community plans like many other communities, but not having the money to take it to the next step and actually facilitate the zoning of that land to get it to actually happen is where we stop. So I think the next time we do it, we need to talk about reality, and that is, if that is where we want to see it go, then let's get it done and get it zoned and find the person to do what we want on that piece of property. And I really would like the school board also to step up and facilitate the use of the most valuable piece of land we have, sits there empty, underutilized, when there could be good, affordable housing projects on that piece of property. I think it's a crime.
Thank you, Dave. I agree with you. So what is affordable to some is not affordable to others. Attainable housing, a term best describing what is needed. Now, to achieve that, number one, we have to determine the average income of our community. Number two, we have to identify the town lands that is available. And number three, we have to search for government grants to support housing development from the federal, provincial level. What we need is the 3 Ps. Private developers, they construct. Number 2, public senior governments to provide the funding. And number 3, our municipality to provide the land. This is the process we need to take. And I have to say, I really enjoyed, we've moved from there. I had a nice home on Hall Road in the woods, and we had a lovely carriage home at the back, and it really worked great. It's perfect moving forward.
So this is a moment where I wish I had like 5 minutes instead of 1, but obviously I would be really tedious if I spoke for 5. But I think the fundamental thing is I'm just going to refer to some census data just off the top of my head. A few months ago, we got the average median income for single parents in Qualicum Beach. It's about $66,000. Third of that is 22, divide that by 12, less than $2,000 a month. This morning I looked at Craigslist. There's a 1-bedroom for $2,300 a month. There are 2 bedrooms for $2,500 a month, and 3 bedrooms start at $3,000 a month. So you're spending literally over half your income in many of those instances if you're a single parent with kids. There are 250 single parents in our community in the last census. So when we're saying 33% of your income, we have to realize we have a tourism-based economy with a large service sector that has a lot of jobs that don't pay particularly well. And so the only way you really accomplish that 33% threshold is through using free land, whether it's through the town, a nonprofit, a faith-based organization. There are a lot of different avenues, but that's the fundamental thing. And then you have to get partnerships with either BC Housing or CMHC. And that's where the federal and provincial funds come from. Without that, you cannot make it, particularly because building costs per square foot are around $300 per square foot in Qualicum Beach right now. Thank you.
I understand affordable housing because I was a single dad of 3 kids. So how do we tackle this? I suppose the town of Qualicum could invite people who are concerned about affordable housing to put together a group who can solicit funds in conjunction with BC Housing and manage affordable housing projects like the Kiwanis had done. On the second part, I find this amazing. We condemn developers and builders who tear down old homes to make cohesive residences. But on the other hand, we are willing to allow a hodgepodge set of buildings on the same lot. I do not understand.
I think it is critical that we find housing solutions for local residents and workers who provide essential services to keep our businesses running. I believe that through the OCP review, we can explore more innovative solutions, such as co-ops, tiny houses, pocket neighborhoods, modular homes, and infill housing, which leads me to the second part of the question. In terms of infill housing, I believe that currently there are properties that are of a large enough size that one could build a 900 square foot rental accommodation. Whether or not this is achievable by a lot of people if you're looking at 300 square feet or $300 per square foot for building cost, that can be rather expensive. So having said that, I think that if there were to be incentives provided, it would have to come through the provincial or federal incentives. I just don't think that the town can finance this. Thank you.
So as many of you know, we have already taken some action to create affordable housing. In addition to the original and redone Kiwanis housing on First Avenue, the council has approved new housing on Railway Street, and that will provide additional affordable units. My concern is that this housing needs to be for our residents, that they will be given the first opportunity to continue to live and work in our community. And as mentioned previously by another speaker, I think that the market won't provide this housing, so we do need to form partnerships if we are going to provide more affordable housing. And to the second part of the question, we do already allow secondary suites, so I would say I'm open-minded on this, but I think one of the first steps we need to look at is managing our short-term rentals, as my concern is that many of these dwellings would be used not for long-term accommodation, but for short-term rentals for tourists. Thank you.
Thank you. We had a great start with the Kiwanis Railway Station, the Townland, BC Housing, and Kiwanis. I need to give hats off to Councillor Harrison and resident Walter Hoogland for their efforts on that project. We could not have done it without them. We did lose half the family-friendly 3-bedroom units because of last-minute changes. We as a council need to do way better than that. We as a town need to find ways and locations to do more, again, to support seniors, families, workers who so desperately need a place to stay in town, be part of our community. Exploring options on town land by the airport, possibly, that could be exciting. Yes, I think the province should offer a freeze on assessments, possibly, or 5 to 10 years for anyone who converts a garage or outbuilding. The town can encourage this initiative by making the process for that to happen easier and less burdensome. One 500 square foot double car garage could worker-friendly housing for 2. It could also provide income for retired seniors. So yes, I strongly support the concept and can't wait to hear what those opportunities will look like. Thank you.
Yes, I do support affordable housing and initiatives that are intended to improve that opportunity. What I would like to see is that many other municipalities, as previously referenced, have done a lot of the footwork in this area in working and cooperating with developers to ensure that attainable housing is included in their development plans. And one of the things that we've often heard is that, you know, we need to provide more stock. And anybody who has been in Qualicum Beach for any amount of time was realizing, should realize that what we're not doing is providing the right kind of stock. We take out single-family houses, we build 2 more multi-million-dollar houses, we build 200 houses out by the golf course, and we get $450,000 back, which barely will provide for land. We put in all these big multi-million-dollar investments, and we leave nothing for the people that actually need to be housed. So we haven't seen even groundbreaking on the railroad section yet, or sorry, the railroad development yet. We need to be more conducive or intelligent about how we're integrating it into our development. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the true question is, what is affordable these days? I sat on the housing task force and worked with BC Housing previously back in 2018, and even then the land prices have changed dramatically. So developers are more loath to give away units in their larger developments for support of affordable housing. So where does that leave us? Well, projects like our own on Railway Avenue, where we can use our own land and we can work with senior levels of government, are really one of the only and few choices that we have at this point. Our project on Railway Avenue has proven that we can work with them, so kudos to staff and council on that. And to the second point, supporting financial incentives, well, that would have to be defined as to what they were and how they came about. The carriage homes, of course, always need zoning. They have zoning issues with them as far as lot sizes go, but I'm open to any mechanisms. There are tax exemptions for renovations and those types of things that can be looked into, but I'm not quite sure how we can privately incentivize homeowners in that case. Thank you.
I think you laid it out pretty well, Peter. But I think when the town said we can build carriage homes, secondary suites all over town, that did have some uptake. And I agree with Councillor Skipsey when she said that we have made some steps in the right direction. I don't think any private landowner will actually plan to build affordable housing. I think it has to be town-owned land, and we got town-owned land opportunities. So I think working at the airport, where we've got 5 acres that we bought some time ago, for some kind of affordable housing, work with a non-profit society who would manage it. So I don't think the town or town staff should manage that. We have groups from Victoria to Campbell River who will actually help you run these facilities and make sure that the housing is affordable and intended for the people who need it most. We don't want somebody to live here in the summertime in an affordable housing unit and then go south to California or Arizona for the winter. So we want to make sure it serves the people that we need to. Thank you.
Well, it's nice to be kind of last and hearing all of my fellow colleagues talk about this topic. This is a huge and very important topic. The affordable and available housing is necessary for our seniors with the low income, and as well as for the young families and the service people that we need to have homes for. Is crucial and critical, and per capita we have so many seniors here that we ought to be able to work with a higher level of governments and ask for that special support. If you look in Saanich right now, they have funding that is for 800 affordable housing, and it's just recent. I think Rob Fleming, the MLA in that area, has negotiated that, and that's something we don't need that possibly that scale, but we can work with higher levels of government and get somewhere. And certainly, let's brainstorm on this topic. And as far as having carriage homes, yes, I think that's important and have those incentives, but just so that they have a contract, it's not an Airbnb.
Well, thank you very much. Good responses on a hybrid question, so that's always interesting when you can put it all together. The next one here is one that I had, I think I had 3 folks that write in about this one, and basically it's about, would you support eliminating all wood-burning stoves and heaters in town? This may be a yes or no answer, so I know you're not liking this. You don't like that, Dave, I know. Sorry, bud.
I find it really annoying some days, I got to admit, in the summertime when you're trying to enjoy the evening, but at the same time, I like sitting by somebody's fire pit next door that has a log in it for a couple of hours. So I just think wood-burning stoves in the house, if they're updated, would probably be fine. But I struggle with ones that are 30, 40, 50 years old that leave this must floating over top of the house. And so I think we need to take a close look at it. I certainly think there's a ways of grandfathering these things too, because insurance regulations are so tight now. It's easy to put in some regulations to control it, so that over a period of time they're staged out of the system. So.
Thank you. I know that the province, I don't know the exact year, but the province is, I think it's in 2023 or 2026. I remember that they are putting forms of regulation in for wood burning. They're going to come and inspect and measure the particulates that your fireplace is giving off. And they'll make the recommendations and decide what your options are. You can update to a newer wood burning that isn't as harmful to the outdoor atmosphere. And they're looking at the particles that's being emitted by your wood burning fire. I personally like wood burning fireplaces. We had one in Bowser, and it does give a lovely heat. And I think right now, there's a lot of people that's their only option. So it has to be carefully done, but I think it's out of our hands. The government is planning on looking at it. But there is options now. We've had heat pumps now, and I absolutely love it. I know it has to be assessed with your neighbor next door, because it does give a lot of noise. Sorry.
So in ancient Rome, there was a satirist who had a one-liner: the more numerous the laws, the more troubled the state. And I think one of the things here is to what extent do we want to micromanage the homes of individual citizens. I do think there's a fair argument when you're looking at particulate matter. There are health impacts to that, and that's fair. But I think when you start to get out into ALR land and homes that are very distant from everyone else, to what extent do we want to micromanage every aspect of how that home is done when it already exists? The other side, too, is also, are we offering people a fair opportunity to make that transition? Or are we just forcing them to pay that out of pocket because of new regulation? In this, I would sort of defer more to the province and initiatives being done by the province through initiatives like Clean BC. But I do worry the extent to which we start intruding into decisions that are more for homeowners than for the local government. But I do think when you're looking at new builds, you want to try to prioritize more efficient and cleaner forms of heating. But for existing homes, I think it's a little bit more tricky about where you draw that line. But again, I just defer to the province on this, because I think this is something they're showing a lot of leadership on.
On a relative topic, I would support improving firefighting resources. My home is surrounded by 130-foot tall trees, and I constantly worry what would happen if it were to start burning. I am not a fan of breathing forest fire smoke all summer.
I think that some of our residents do rely on wood for their heating, and that they don't have the resources to change that system. So I think we have to take that into consideration, as others have said, and probably the best way to do that is to grandfather the existing wood-burning stoves and fireplaces. And perhaps we would have some input into the province making their changes, but that would be a question of, are people aware of the problems with wood-burning stoves, and educating them in terms of the fire hazards and health issues. Thank you.
I would not support a full ban of wood-burning stoves and heaters in the town at this time, but there are steps that we can take to reduce the impact on air quality. And I tend to be more of a carrot rather than a stick person, especially given the increased costs of everything right now. So we can educate our residents as to the impacts. We can encourage alternatives like heat pumps. And as mentioned, we can also work to improve the efficiency of the stoves that are in use.
Thank you. The answer is no. We're not there yet. Believe it or not, there are some homes in town, which you've already heard, that are still using wood and oil heating. I think more funding programs, initiatives from the province to help those who can't afford it to do it themselves, which is key. I think move that direction, but we need to do a program possibly like heat pumps to assist in that transition. MLA Walker, I hope you're taking notes. This is going to cost you a pile of money. Thank you.
I'm open to the discussion, but again, I tend to work off of facts, and it's so involving the province and collecting actual details of the health impact and the cost impact and all those different things, how they affect people, would be something that I definitely want to have a better review of before coming to a definitive decision. Thank you.
I will follow in Brian's footsteps here. No, I think it's far too much government oversight. It would also be a very difficult task. I mean, I understand the air quality question here. However, for many folks in town, that's all they have or all they can afford. So it makes it kind of a double-edged sword. I would have to understand the impact on those families versus any effects of the output from the stove, but I think we could probably incentivize some things and try and get people over to heat pumps if the province would be willing to help. All wood-burning stoves have to be wet certified these days for insurance purposes on a home. So ensuring that that is done, I think, is another key piece as far as the safety side goes. Thank you.
I think we're all saying the same thing. I see people starting to leave because we're basically saying the same thing on this issue as well. We don't want to have overreach from government saying nobody can have a wood stove. You can't have any wood stove outside. I think it's a part of a West Coast living where we have camping and we have a little wood burning. So I think what Dave really said is to make sure that they're up to date, that they don't have a lot of pollution when it goes with it and bad for your health. But other than that, I think we should allow people to have that fire just in the wintertime. And many people, and I know quite a few of them, that they don't have a huge income, and burning some wood in the wintertime helps them economically. Thank you.
Yes, I believe that we should not allow for wood-burning fireplaces in new builds. I did come across a couple in my door knocking that they said the particulates from the fire that some of their neighbors have from coming out of their chimney was bothersome, that they could not leave their house when that happens. So what we really need is someone to invent some sort of screen for the chimney so that we can somehow eliminate those particulates, and brainstorm on this topic on how else we can help people that have issues on breathing when the wood burning fires are happening.
No.
There's something has to be said for brevity sometimes. Okay, I got bad news for you. You have to listen to me for a few seconds. We're going to change the battery in the camera.
Doreen Mackay-Dunn, running for council. What sets me apart from the other candidates? I served over 30 years as a registered nurse and a psychiatric nurse. I have extensive experience in a number of medical fields. The most important skill I would bring to council is team building, problem resolution, dynamic group analysis, collaborative skills, and I know how to quickly set up a 24/7 healthcare unit in our town. I have been very active in our community for the last 4 years. I have served on Qualicum Beach Select Committee on Public Safety and advocating for better street signage, speed reductions, addressing the ongoing light pollution. In addition, I have attended every council meeting in person or by Zoom. I know an effective councillor must represent everyone fairly, with patience and understanding. Yes, I will listen to you. I will act. Please refer to my card for my plan for the next 4 years in collaboration with other members of council. Thank you for listening, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't actually have something prepared right now, so I'm just going to go speak extemporaneously for a sec. When I first ran, I didn't expect to win. I expected to come 5th or 6th. I thought I was going to lose. So the real reason I ran was to say, here are some solutions for affordable housing. Dear council, please look at implementing them. Best of luck to you. Goodbye. And then I squeaked in, just barely got in. So during this term, I did try to really focus on making sure that what I was talking about in the election actually was successful. So I didn't just run on getting an affordable housing project built. I ran on a specific funding stream, and we were successful. There were only 4 projects north of the Malahat on the whole island that were funded. We were one of them. Beyond that, too, reconciliation is something I feel pretty deeply about. On my website, which maybe 4 people saw, I did have a note that I wanted to update our town crest. That's happened. Also, too, you know, what I've done to try to help Chief Michael Racalma with his issues, too, is, I think, is kind of a nice thing for the town. Thanks. But it's also, too, one of the reasons I did that is I really hope that we all as a community realize that there's sometimes sacrifices we need to make for the greater good. That we can't quite have our cake and eat it too anymore. Unfortunately, the housing market's gone out of control. We do have to deal with climate change. We do have a healthcare system that is under severe stress. So I do hope when we're looking at these difficult decisions, and there have been a lot of decisions in this term that I would have preferred to not have to deal with, but I did have to deal with them because it's on the agenda. That we look at how can we make compromises that serve the long-term needs of the community. Because it is something where we have a wonderful, precious community, but at the same time, it's facing a lot of stress. If we don't have workers in our small businesses, those business owners are going to burn out and leave. My older sister and all 4 of my cousins all worked at Lefties. It's gone now. I just think that there's a lot of work to do. It's not fixed in 4 years. You can't fix everything we need to do in 4 years. We're not going to be able to fix it in 10, but we do need to keep addressing those fundamental problems, no matter who is in elected office, because we owe it to the next generation of citizens, the citizens who grew up here, and the people who are going to be coming here, to give them the best possible version of Qualicum Beach as we move forward. Thanks so much.
Well, I'm not really prepared to give too much advice and fill out the application on this. I have 67 years of experience and different things that I've done in my life. And 2 weeks ago, I thought I can add something else and I can learn something new. So I want to be a counselor because I want to live here. I want to understand what's going on. And I want to help everyone achieve their goals.
I didn't think we'd be summing up quite right now, so I will try to say the essence of what I believe, and excuse me. I think that we really need to work together as a town, and we need to look at what our intention is. I think the council needs to approach things with the intention of doing what the residents are asking us to do. And the way that we can do that is through the official community plan. And the official community plan is up for review in this term. And I think it's very important that we do it right, do it well, and do it right. Having said that, I'll go on to why I think I would be a good counselor. I have the educational background, the temperament, and life experiences needed to be an effective member of council. I am a good listener and value broad input to achieve the best results for the town, not for myself, not for a special interest group, but for the town. I recently retired and have the time, energy, and commitment to meet the challenges of Councillor for Qualicum Beach. Thank you.
So in my opening, I reflected on the past and the role of the OCP in building the Qualicum Beach of today. We learn from the past, but we must be looking forward to the future and well beyond this 4-year council term to shape and build a Qualicum Beach that we would be proud to pass on to future generations. We are experiencing changes to our climate now, so we need to take action now, starting with the implementation of the community's climate change adaptation plan. For me, this includes prioritizing a robust emergency management program and activating the Urban Forest Master Plan and its tree and vegetation bylaw. I am excited about the new energy at Town Hall and the depth of knowledge and experience our new Chief Administrative Officer brings to our community. I want to work with her and a new council to improve communications, responsiveness, transparency, and financial accountability, the good governance you expect at Town Hall. My track record of community involvement, my knowledge of local government, my prior service as a town councillor, and most of all, my love of this special place we call Qualicum Beach uniquely qualifies me. I am asking for your vote in this election. Thank you.
When I ran in 2018, I shared a focused, achievable vision for the residents of Qualicum Beach. I've worked continuously on the doctor's shortage, and that work continues. Options are few as well outside our jurisdiction, but I will continue to work with our MLA, VHA, Division of Family Practice, to explore any and all opportunities to get you the physicians we so desperately need. OCP changes for this term, the average for mid-sized communities. We need to be able to move and adapt to the changing world. We need to focus on tourist accommodation, which is in turn support our local businesses. Need to work on making Qualicum young family friendly. Our playgrounds are sorely in need of upgrades. St. Andrews needs to get done. My understanding is there's a 2-year waiting list for after school care. I don't have the answer, but working together, maybe we can find it. We made big strides forward with truly affordable housing, but need to continue exploring additional options. We need to engage the owner of the south side of 2nd Avenue to finish the dream of the East Village. In my opinion, we must include the relocation of the Public Works Yard. That space is ideal for a cinema, restaurants, parking for downtown. What can we do on a global scale to combat climate change? Whatever personal views that might be on this file, climate emergency or manageable change, I'm happy to have the town do its part in a low carbon economy. But for individuals in our town, per capita emissions are largely beyond this council to act. My friends, the vision remains, the work continues. You voted for change last election, and I delivered, and I will again. Thank you.
Just part of my time, I'd just like to, we talked about youth, and I'd just like to get the lady in the back who's been taking pictures. She's part of the Fridays for Future, so shout out to her for coming and participating. I'm not a polished politician, and I don't have a fancy speech to sum up the night. I will say that I have a long history of working with diverse and multifaceted groups and working towards successful completion of projects. We need to ensure that council maintains alignment with the OCP. We need to incorporate the environment and all of the things that people have talked about here, but we need to do so in a collaborative, non-divisive way instead of having people arguing at the council table about some ego-driven project. We need to cooperate with the province and other areas to make sure that we get our healthcare system in town, available to the people here, that we have parks for kids to play in and so forth. But I want to make sure that residents are heard and respected when they speak to council and they bring their ideas to the table. And that's a key component for me and something that I think needs to be done going forward. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak and for considering me as a member of our next council. It is a civic duty, and it's not something to be taken lightly. We always have to remember and not forget who put us in those seats and why. It's a key piece for me. We're fortunate to live in this very special place. Really, we really are. It's an amazing community. I've lived all over the world, and I have never come across anything as fabulous as Qualicum Beach. I can say that truthfully and from the heart. But what we're going to take to move forward in the future is a practical yet creative eye that will take teamwork, commitment, and most importantly, trust. I look forward to being part of the new council. There's a lot of work to do. So I would ask you to please take a look at my Facebook page, Peter Kent for Qualicum Beach Council, and my website, which is kent4qb.com. And please contact me if you have any questions that you feel I haven't answered this evening, because I'm more than happy to come back and respond to those. Winston Churchill once said, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen." I'm here to listen. Thank you.
You know, I never saw myself as a politician until I moved to Qualicum Beach, and in '96, I was elected to councillor, followed by a 19-year term as your mayor. Qualicum Beach, in my opinion, is still the crown jewel of Vancouver Island, but it's changing. And I think we need to carefully manage this change in order to preserve the reasons that attract us here in the first place. My mission has always been to put the needs of our residents first and to listen what you have to say and respond. After listening to you in recent years, it's my understanding that our goals for Qualicum Beach going forward are very similar, and I believe that they are achievable. I've always enjoyed working with you, and I'm proud of what we have accomplished together so far. It has been a privilege and honor to serve the citizens of Qualicum Beach, and I thank you for the trust that you have put in me as your mayor. And if you grant me another term in this role, I will follow our agenda laid out in our official community plan and will continue to enhance the future of our great community and the quality of life for people of all ages. Thank you.
You know, we have a whole panel here of eager and energized people that want to work on council. I think we should pool all the salaries and all of us get in to work for you. However, if you can only choose 4, let one of them be me for councillor. I am a longtime resident of Qualicum Beach, raising a family of 3 through our school system and managing a retail store downtown, now in its 25th year. We enjoy an exceptional quality of life here with our beautiful natural resources, with healthy recreational possibilities, and our many art and cultural events. Just like you, I care about sustaining and maintaining an economically resilient, ecologically safe, and socially just society, as well as continued nurturing of an exceptional quality of life. I am nonpartisan. I am here to hear your concerns and have decisions decided on democratically in council with transparency and collaboration. Voting me to be your councillor, I promise to work hard. I want to find you positive and successful solutions and actions for Qualicum Beach's healthcare, developments with green initiatives and green space, and available housing needs. Thank you.
I feel very fortunate to have been born and raised in Qualicum Beach, along with my parents, my grandparents, my 5 siblings, and my siblings are now raising their children here in Qualicum Beach. It's very rare to have a 20-year-old say, you know what, I'm going to stay here and I'll run for council and I'll work for you for 4 years and I'll continue doing that work, although there's a career and there's life ahead of that person. In 2018, many young people across the province ran and got elected and are now stepping away for multiple reasons. But it's due to the harshness of the job. However, it doesn't have to be that way, and it's unfortunate that our young people are moving away and stepping away from the role. In the next 4 years, the town is going to be faced with many challenges. We're building back from the pandemic. We're going to see key senior staffing positions retire, and we're going to go through an OCP review. All of these points are going to create are all going to need experience, local government experience. I've sat at that table for 4 years. Before that, I sat at four years watching the council, 8 years of sitting in that chamber. It's not the funnest job, but it is worthwhile. In 2018, when I ran, I didn't promise affordable housing, I didn't promise healthcare, but I did promise to listen, respond, and work hard, and I have held those promises true. The only project, however, that I did promise was to our youth. I had youth approach me in the last election, say, if you get elected, can you make sure that youth feel safe in our community? Can you paint me a rainbow crosswalk? I said, absolutely, and I made it happen on my very first council meeting. I will continue to hold that very true to myself. My commitment to you has not changed. On October 15th, vote Robert Filmer.
Thanks, Robert. And I knew somehow you were going to have me last at something, and it worked out. I'm last. Listen, I value sound management and community infrastructure. I believe in making financial decisions based on long-term health of this community. I support completion of the St. Andrews Park project, continuing improvements to our beachfront access. I believe in revitalizing our tourist industry, which used to be huge here. It was our driving force, and it kept our downtown alive, and we need to work on it. I believe in creating housing solutions that are affordable, working with provincial and federal governments to find opportunities to improve the delivery of healthcare. I'm running for public office, but my community involvement didn't start there. I've been a Rotary member for 30 years, serving many roles, including president. I've been president of the QB Chamber of Commerce, inaugural president of Bard to Broadway Theatre Society, and director of Island Good, which many have heard is a brand developed to promote Vancouver Island products, which is important to me. I have held leadership roles, but I'm also a team player. I'm also a joiner. I've joined in to support community initiatives and local events. I understand the importance of good leadership, good governance, good information, and most importantly, listening to you, the constituents. Thank you for coming out tonight and spending this evening with us. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, first off, these things don't happen without volunteers. So, to the timekeeper, the videographer, to all those folks who are helping people in, let's have a round of applause for the great volunteers who made it happen. I also think it was very insightful. I want to thank all of the candidates. You were well prepared, and it was great to have so much insight. It wasn't just trying to guess your way through it. You actually had your facts, and I compliment you all for being so well prepared, and again, showing us what it's like to have respect and to be knowledgeable at the same time. Now, to the audience, we've got only about 15 minutes. We can open the floor to questions. Caveats as always. Remember, this is about respect, and it is directed toward the forum. It's not directed to an individual. So if anyone would like to come up and ask a question of all of the candidates, we can probably get 1 or 2 questions in at the max, unless you feel that all the folks that I had were exemplary and you don't have to add to it. So we do have some microphones at the front here. And again, question will be short. I will have to cut you off if it gets anything personal. But again, please be respectful. And your first question, please.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I have a question more economically focused. So all signs are pointing to us going towards a prolonged recession. I hear lots of spend topics here, and I see a lot of environmental spend that comes at a cost of repressed depression. So my question here is, what is your expectation from a percentage for your annual budget being allocated towards your green initiatives? And what operational budgets are you prepared to sacrifice to achieve your green initiatives?
Okay, so that's actually a pretty good question. One of the issues, too, is where we draw the lines between something that's just functional infrastructure and something that's a green initiative. So one thing I'd point to, for example, is the spit in front of the roundabout at the base of the memorial and the Old Island Highway. That's basically core infrastructure, but it also has an environmental lens to it. But it essentially protects the infrastructure from the king tide. So we saw that where right next door the seawall collapsed, but that actually protected the roundabout very, very well. So I think it's a little bit hard to come up with exact percentages, but I think the fundamental thing you're talking about is how there's a trade-off between being at the cutting edge in terms of green technology comes with an economic cost. And you have to be cognizant of that both within your operations and also, too, in terms of the capital expenditures. So I wouldn't commit to exact percentages now, just because it would really depend on the strategic plan of the next council, how much you want to do. But I would point out things like, if you want to reduce our emissions as a town, well, you have to buy electric light trucks. Those are going to be brand new in 2 years' time when they're actually available. And the resale value for used vehicles is going to be very high for a long time because there's insufficient supply. And I'm talking too long.
Is this quick enough for you?
I don't know that I have a direct answer off the top of my head, and certainly not in terms of the percentages. I think it's more, again, what is our intention as a council and or me as a councillor. And I think it's really important to look at those kinds of initiatives and those problems that we have. I can't say we should do this, we should do that. I want to, or I would want to review the situation and the input and then make a decision based on that rather than right now, this is what we should do, or right now, that's what we should do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think that this will be part of the discussion that the new council will have. And when we're looking at strategic planning and or our budget. My personal experience is that I would rather be proactive and spend the money up front than reactive and clean up the mess later, because that's usually more expensive in the long run.
So I didn't hear the question that well, but my understanding is green initiative funding and what operational funding am I willing to give up to make that happen was part of that. So what happens at each council term, every single term, is we have a strategic plan that we go with. So council at that time will get all these different initiatives that were been given to us by the community that they're concerned with, and we'll bring it into a room and we'll hammer it out for 2 or 3 days and figure it out, then we'll take it back to the community, to a community of the whole, then we'll bring it back. Then from that comes the budget. Once we know what the strategic plan is, we develop the budget around our initiatives. So we need to have the budget deliberation depending on what the strat plan is. I can't say to anyone today that I would give up this, for that, not at this point, because I don't know what all the items are coming to the table. We can't make decisions on what may be there or may not be there. So once this plan gets to the strat plan, that's when we'll make the decision on the financing price. Thank you.
Ditto. No, sorry. Again, it's a bit of an unfair question in the sense that you don't know what else is on the table. You can't give definitive answers or percentages because there may be something that comes up between now and then, or what the strategic plan is. So again, it's a group decision. It's something that we all should have input on, and the council will make in the best interest of the town and the residents. So you heard the explanation here a few times. I don't think there's anything fantastic that somebody can say that go, oh, I've got the silver bullet, because there isn't one. There never is. It's a collaborative effort. It's a common decision that people have to come to.
I agree with Brian. I mean, you can't really cast off one for the other, and that we don't know exactly what the variables are and what the budget's going to look like. Once you get into the strategic plan, those decisions will come to fruition. Also, I have sat through 4 budgets, and I know that once you're inside the organization, things look a little bit differently on the other side of the table, and those line items that are included in the budget have a lot more detail, so that when you're looking at a budget actually sitting on council, you see things a little bit differently than what the general public tends to see it. So I can't really answer that question with any kind of a fulsome answer at this point. It would come down to strategic planning, I think, once we get into council. Thank you.
For almost a year, we had the youth from this area, I think there were 16, 17-year-olds, sitting on our windowsill at a town hall, which goes right down to the bottom, every Friday from 9 to 3, protesting basically the fact that we're not doing enough about climate change. And I was asked to say a few words, which I did, but nothing of what the kids were saying is unreasonable. We're going to be asked, I will be asked, you will be asked, what did you do with all the information that you heard about climate change? And I hope to be able to say that I did everything I could, and that you will be able to say that as well. There are ways that we can reduce greenhouse gas by low carbon transportation. That's one thing we can control. There's another thing we can do with greening buildings. Those are the two main emitters. I think transportation is about 67%, and the other for buildings about 27%. So there are things that we can control, and yes, anything we're doing has a cost, but I think it's worth it, and we owe it to the future generations. Thank you.
I believe we certainly should be mindful of green initiatives. There's nothing that we should be waiting about dealing with green initiatives. I think we should look at what we need to get done and how we can use green initiatives and how we can make our budget fit for that. It's like, for instance, the price of bread has gone up, but we're still buying it. So somehow we've got to make the budget work. Maybe when it comes to our public vehicles, perhaps we don't go out and buy a whole fleet, but maybe start with a couple of vehicles, but each thing that we do going forward, it should be mindful of green initiatives.
The one part of the question that I took away from that was, what are you going to remove out of the budget to make that happen? And over the 4 years, I've had this discussion with residents when they want a project, and I sit down and we'll go through the numbers, just not deep into the budget, but let's look at the numbers, let's see what we've allocated. And I had a resident once say, well, there's a lot of money for the fire department there, let's take some out of there and put it here. And I said, okay, but if we do that, you lose a new fire truck. Oh, we can't do that. No, we can't. So when you look at, there's not a lot of room to move in any municipal budget, so what are you going to remove? And when this council, and the next council goes into the strategic planning, it would be very interesting to be able to have the public involved in every step of that process. So when we do look at removing items from the budget, it's not us saying it, it's the residents saying, you know what, this is more important to me than that. Especially when you look at budget items, because everyone, you can go to each corner of the community and everyone's going to have a very passionate point on why we should keep one item versus the other. We've already looked at improving many environmental facts of our community. Look at the airport. We've improved fuel tanks at the airport. We've changed our lighting to LED at the airport. We've made motions in council, and when we advance our fleet to start going to electric. So we already have made initiatives to move forward, and those will be included into the budget. However, moving into the next strategic plan, we'll have to see what we do remove out of the budget to make it happen. Thanks.
I think over my 30 years here, I've seen many of these meetings where it was all about tax increases. People were furious at the rate that taxation was increasing in this community. So I think it's a very valid question, because at the same time, trying to keep everybody happy, we have to take care of the financial side of things as well. When you start talking about a 750,000 hit for something, that's 5% of the budget, but it's probably about 30% of the discretionary money that's left at the end of the day to spend. So we have to make a list, and that's part of the strategic planning session. But the other part of it is we have a fabulous town staff, including engineering and planning, that have always been able to facilitate us in taking the next step when that item is put forward, and said, let's prepare the drawings, let's prepare this for the next grant or application that comes out from the province, and we can slip it in here. So in other words, don't fixate yourself on trying to do everything in a row, because grants don't come up in a row and fit your list. Sometimes they skip a few things. So it's important that we're ready for those grants and applications, because we need them. You get the Memorial Avenue upgrade down to the roundabout. That was what, $7 million? That's $7 million. We don't have that type of money. We did it step by step through grants. And I think that's really important, and I think financial responsibility is very, very important when we're looking at any of these. We have to make a choice. It's either the milkshake or the sundae, but Dad wouldn't give me both.
Okay, thank you for the question. Back there, I don't have the percentage, but this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. There is a climate emergency, and we have to stop talking, and we have to act right now. We have a lot of things in place. We have the tree and vegetation plan. We have the urban forestry strategy plan. We have the environmental and sustainable committee plan. We have everything to go, right ready. And it could be talked about at the first council meeting. And those are initiatives that we need to take right now. We need to preserve our green space, our rural lands, our treed property. We have to protect our wetlands. This is an ecological assessment, and it so should remain for the future. Trees are the only reason that we're able to breathe clean air, and this must be protected. Yes, we do have to look at the budget. Yes, we do have to have a strategic plan in place, but there's things that we can do right now, and I can hardly wait. It's really needed. Thank you.
Okay, then, if we can have the next question, please. And unfortunately, we are starting to run out of time because, again, we want to make sure that you can meet with the candidates afterwards. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think my question fits in quite nicely with the last one. As a lifelong resident, I have really enjoyed listening to all of your great ideas for our community, but I've also heard you spend a lot of money tonight. How do you propose increasing our tax base versus our tax burden?
I think the contractor in me likes to research. I like to go home and Google a few answers, and then I'll come back with my best answer.
I think perhaps the underlying issue, rather than how can we increase the tax base, is more, do we need to focus on increasing the tax base? Or should we revisit how we spend taxpayer monies? The current rate of growth results in increased costs that are not always offset by development fees. Various projects underway are not fully covered by grants. Essentially, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, I guess with growth, we see an increase in the tax base, and it is stable and predictable. But there's more that probably could be done. Again, looking at our costs, and also we, as a council, we're looking at some new and interesting ideas for businesses that might use town-owned land. So we could continue to explore those. Anybody remember the Funky Banana Farm?
Well, I think we've done a few things this year already. So I gotta go back to Pheasant Glen. There's been some comments about that. That's a strata development, 225 units, all paying town taxes. And being a strata means we do no work there. So we don't go clean roads, we don't do their lights, we don't do anything. But they all pay town taxes. Guess where all that money goes? It goes into our pocket. We just did the same thing in the East Village. That money, there's no roads to look after, just the one out front. And they all walk up and down their elevator, or take their elevators from the fifth floor, the sixth floor, whatever it looks like. There's no cost for us there, very little cost for the town to get things done. But it's high density, so we get good tax money out of that. We have to look at that. The other part of, I'm so sorry. The other part of that is we got a trail system, with Pheasant Glen. That's the mini. That's something we don't have to build that benefits us all. Huge tax base, 40 condos. The things we're doing with Pheasant Glen, the East Village, a couple of places on First Avenue, the one we did on Beach, is increasing density, which is going to increase our tax base, which makes it better and lowers your taxes next year. Thank you.
Taxing residents is never a popular option, and taxing businesses is usually ends up with the cost being passed along. It's a difficult conversation to have with people. I would suggest that we can look at boosting tourism, attracting and supporting our existing businesses, pursuing planned developments in the commercial core, and working hand in hand with the Chamber of Commerce. Tax revenue from building homes, sometimes is questionable, but it's a bit of a losing game. I'd also like to do work with provincial partners on job programs that encourage people to, move to and stay in Qualicum, and work with the private sector and rezone accordingly to make downtown core more attractive for free enterprise to move in and revitalize.
Well, as we all know, that tourism is a big draw for us. We don't have a great deal of industrial land here, so we can't use that so much as a tax base. So funding our tourism board and supporting our Chamber of Commerce, obviously. Funding the tourism board's advertising campaign brings dollars into our businesses here. Film is a huge, a multi-billion-dollar, actually, industry. Thank you. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry in BC. And as you know, we have Chesapeake Shores coming here. They say that they may be done, but that's Hallmark's decision, and back at the, another 6 months from now, they may come back. But we're already on the radar in Hollywood as far as shooting films in this beautiful little community of ours. Also, with the culmination of the East Village, now we'll see additional businesses join us and contribute to the coffers as well. So all of those things can help. Thank you.
Expanding our residential tax base doesn't really work, because if it did, Parksville and Nanaimo would be tax-free. They have lots of residential development, so it actually end up costing you more. Commercial tax base expansion is a good idea, and I agree with the idea of supporting the Pheasant Glen development. I've been in favor of that for many, many years. And I think what we're doing sounds like a good idea, having a 40-room lodge and then some 60 units for people in the rental pool. If they are truly available for people to come here as tourists and stay overnight or for the weekend or a week or a month, then it's good. That brings in money. And they are in a strata. And the same with the Totson development, they're actually in a strata. So it would help the tax base in that regard. I think it was a bad development. I think we should never develop the estate properties. But having said that, from a tax base, thank you. From a tax base, I think you have to be very cautious. The only real reason we can increase our tax base by commercial development, and I don't see that happen. I don't think Qualicum Beach is really planned for commercial tax base and urban sprawl like we see in other communities. We are unique, and we have to keep it that way. Thank you.
I think mindful development and residential builds and commercial bills are all going to help with increasing our tax base, and we just have to watch the development proposals, that they are mindful of our ecology, and they have the green initiatives, and they aligned to our OCP. And if they don't align, if they're asking for some bylaw amendments, what is it they're going to offer in return that's going to make that proposal something that we're going to favor? That's something that we can always have discussion on, and that's what I encourage, is for all of us to know what's going on in this town and not have the town council just go in and vote something, but let's have that discussion and understand why we have gone forward with some of the decisions that we have. And I know in the business industry that it is nice to have the development of Pheasant Glen, because it brings in a boost to the economy as well, and the tourists, and for construction of it, just in every which way, it is a benefit as far as I'm concerned, especially when we have the infrastructure that suits that.
Yeah, so when we start looking at tax increase versus tax burden, because that's what the question was tax increase versus tax burden. When we look at tax increases, no community is going to get away from tax increase. However, the question is, how do you keep it at a minimum? When we look at services that we provide to our residents, that's when I speak to residents, one really good question, one good discussion that we always have is, do you feel you're getting the services you deserve off of the taxes that you're paying? And if that answer starts to become no, that's when council needs to look at, okay, what are we doing with our taxes? What are we doing with the hard-earned tax dollars that you pay to ensure that you are getting the services that you need to live your daily lives? When we start looking at tax burden, that's when we look at council allocating money that they haven't budgeted for, and then all of a sudden they go, oh no, what have we done? And now you're looking at adding funds that you don't have. It's happened during this council, I wear that. You look at the childcare project that we've been doing, that's multi-thousands of dollars that council has not budgeted for, that they said, well, we're going to put this in, we're going to make this project happen. Wasn't in the council strategic plan, wasn't in any of our plans, but we push it forward. We take in areas of the RDN that create infrastructure issues for us. Creates a lot of issues for the taxpayer, and those are the types of things that every councillor and mayor needs to keep at top of mind.
I support a diverse housing mix. So when I get on council, I'd like to look at what land we have available, and when we build, we look at the lots and see what can be put on them, and if it's appropriate for a duplex or what's going on. But we really need to review the OCP and do another survey, a life survey, to see actually who is living in town and what the housing needs are and ways to revitalize the town. So if we review the OCP, see if there's young families, who's in town, what kind of housing we need. But we also have to carefully analyze that the housing is appropriate, it's built not to affect other neighbors. And I'm also aware that a realtor told me there's at least 35 homes being sold now in Qualicum. So that's opportunities to look at the lots, what can be built if people want carriage homes. So that increases the residents and the tax base. Also very important to revitalize the town, have festivals, and make Qualicum Beach special.
So Tofino is a tourism-based community. They have about over 30% of their taxes comes from commercial taxation. Parksville is a tourism-based community. They get over 25% or so of their taxes from commercial taxation. Qualicum Beach receives slightly less than 9% of our total tax burden from commercial taxation. We have over 91% of our taxes as residential. We have $0 for light industrial. During this term, the majority of council killed a wood manufacturing facility that would have been done in partnership with First Nations so that they get more money for their wood fiber, and we have high-paying manufacturing jobs in town for a clean tech facility that would have made glulam, wood pellets, and the excess, tiny little bit of excess wood would have heated the facility. You cannot have a long-term economic strategy if you do not have jobs, period. It doesn't work. So one of the things I really think when we're having this discussion about our tax base is we have to wean ourselves off the addiction to residential properties as the only thing we're really doing as a town. Disproportionate amount of the economic activity is real estate and construction. And I have no problem with people in the trades making a living. Realtors perform a function, that's fine. But you do not do well if you invest all your money in one stock. We do not do well if we invest all our economy in one sector.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to apologize. Our cameras are dying, so I'm going to invite you to have questions with the candidates, but we're not going to use anything live. Some folks need to get a bathroom break badly. So I'm just going to close this up for the broadcasting part of this time. To thank you so much for your endurance for coming here, the endurance of our candidates. Thank you so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight, and you're welcome to talk to them afterwards. Have a safe night.